talk about the role of science in informing how we teach and take care of children. It's certainly been true of my own life. I have followed questions like an adventurer for my whole career. And over the last 20 years, one of the questions I've followed is, how do we keep children more engaged in learning? Children are born learning. They little children want to see, to touch, to taste, to experience everything. And then as they get older, lots of studies, including one that I've recently done, show that their engagement in learning drops. So my question has been, what can we do to prevent that decline in engagement? And my second question has been, how can we help children thrive? I began in 2001 following the first question. And obviously, being a researcher myself, wanted to go to the science. Here is a list of the people whom I have both interviewed and, for the most case, filmed over the last 21 years, looking at how do we keep the engagement of learning burning brightly in children's eyes. But before I did that, I use a form called Civic Science, which is I go to people whom I want to, with whom I wanted to share the science, and ask them how would they like to learn about children's learning. In this case, it was groups of parents, and they were skeptical about the science. And that's something that we all know now, which is why civic science is so important. They said, research. First you say drink red wine, and then you say don't drink red wine. And then you say eat red meat, and then you say don't eat red meat. I want to know, one parent in that focus group says, who those researchers are and how they know what they know about my child. So that's the process that I've followed ever since. Virtual field trips to scientists' labs where you meet them in person, where you hear about what they wonder about and how they try to find answers to their questions. Beginning in 2015, I began to move up developmentally. My first look was children birth through 8. Now I've gone pre-birth to look at development in the transition to parenthood. But in this case, I wanted to move up to adolescence. So have been looking at children from 9 through 18. And here's the list of researchers whom I have interviewed and, for the most case, filmed to answer those questions. So let's go to why do we look to the science? Let me share 3 experiments as examples of what we can learn when we look at the science. Let's start with curiosity. One of the first experiments that I'm going to talk about is curiosity with Laura Schultz from MIT. She studies curiosity and wondered what keeps children curious. In other words, what keeps that fire for learning burning? She gave children a jack-in-the-box, 4 to 6 years old, and it wasn't clear how it worked, which lever caused which little puppet, a duck or a pig, to come up. One group of children was not shown how it was worked. They just had a chance to push a lever with the experimenter in the room and saw both figures come up, but didn't know how it worked. In the other case, they were shown how it worked. One lever made one little figure come up, the other lever made another one come up. Then both boxes were removed and a yellow box was put there with the red box. And the experimenter left the room to see which box the children would play with. Well, interestingly enough, if they had been shown how it worked, they went straight to the new box. And that's the role of curiosity. We're always drawn to what's new, to try to figure out what's new. But if they hadn't been shown how it worked, they stayed with that red box and tried to figure it out. The lesson from this and other experiments to me is it's really important to give children a chance to answer their own questions, not to give them the answers so quickly. Moving to the bottom right side of the screen, there's an experiment with Phil Zalazzo from the University of Minnesota. This is a measure of executive function skills, and I'll talk more about that later. And the children are doing a sorting game. They get stars and they get trucks. Some are red and some are blue. And they are told to put, if it's a color game, they're told to put everything that's blue in the blue box, if it's or red in the red box. If it's the shape game, they do the opposite, which is they put the trucks in the truck box and the stars in the star box, whether or not they're blue or red. That's hard for kids. That's really hard. They have to remember the rules. They have to think flexibly because sometimes they're playing the shape game and sometimes the rules, and sometimes they're playing the color game, and they can't go on automatic. Again, 3 components, as we'll see, of executive function. What this study showed is that if children make a mistake, and preschool children make lots of mistakes in doing this, it's very hard. They're given a chance to reflect, to step back and think about what the rules are, and then they're more likely to get it right. So the lesson from this research for me is not always say you're right, you're wrong, but helping children understand why they're right or wrong. On the top screen, picture on the screen, is an experiment by Stephanie Carlson, also at the University of Minnesota. And this is called What Would Batman Do? This child is given a toy that he wants in a box with a set of keys, and none of the keys work. And in the experiment, he's told to either, he or she would be told either to think about yourself, think about yourself in the third person. What would Anthony do? Or to think about someone whom you admire, and you're given, those are 3 different conditions. And in this case, this boy chose to be Batman, someone who has good self-control. When children can think about a task that's really hard, in this case, none of the keys work, and they can pretend to be someone else, it adds a whole year to their ability to persevere, to stick with it when the going gets tough. And so for me, the lesson from this research is how important it is to let children pretend. Pretending isn't just play and different from work. It's the way children learn to try things that can be hard. Another lesson from the science is that it evolves. I think you probably all know the research of Carol Dweck about mindsets, where she's found the importance of a growth mindset, thinking that things can change, versus a fixed mindset, where you think that intelligence is fixed, you're born with the intelligence that you have. Her own science has evolved. She's found that praise matters, and that it's particularly important not just to praise children for effort, you did a good job, but also for the strategy they use. This is a task that's like an intelligent task, where they have to replicate a picture that they see in 2 dimensions with those 3-dimensional blocks, and the pictures are quite complicated. It's a really hard task, and these are grade school age children. And what she found is, at first, that strategy and effort, praise for both, really matter. But increasingly, she's seeing that being praised for the strategy that you've used is important. And a study that just came out by Dave Yeager and his colleagues found, in a national study of teachers' mindsets, that if the teacher also had a growth mindset, the children were more likely to adopt a growth mindset. And that's important, as you'll see later, because when you think that things can change and that you can affect change, you're more likely to persevere, again, when the going gets rough, which is what we want from school. For me, one of the main things that I learned from the science is the importance of executive function skills. And people can sometimes say to me, what is an executive function skill? That can sound like someone in an executive in a pinstripe suit bossing you around in your brain, or it sounds like it's just for compliance. And this is a report done for the Department of Education. And this is how they define executive function skills. They're attention regulation skills that make so many different things possible, so that they're much more than compliance. For example, reflect on past experience and plan for the future. Executive function skills have 2 core parts. They rest on a foundation of attention, being able to pay attention, and reflection. We've just seen reflection, the importance of reflection in the executive function task that I showed you, the sorting game. This is a measure that is used by Adele Diamond, also a leading research of executive function. And The task is if you see a heart, you're supposed to press a button on that computer on the same side that you see the heart. But if a flower appears, then you press the opposite side. So flowers, opposite side, heart, same side. And to do that, you have to keep memory. You have to remember the rules, working memory. You have to be flexible because the rules change. It goes from hearts or flowers in these trials. And you can't go on automatic. You have to use self-control. These are the core components of executive function, plus the foundations that they rest on. Executive function skills are extremely important because lots of studies have shown that they are predictive of health and wealth when you're older. They're very critical for school readiness and more important than IQ or entry-level reading and math. This study, one of these studies, the study on the right is one that I like very much because it was done of 1,000 children in Dunedin, New Zealand, followed this study. These analyses were done when the children had grown up to be 32, and that they found that self-control when they were preschoolers was very predictive of their health and their wealth when they were 32. They're also important of your success throughout your school years. The study by Megan McClellan is one that showed that kids who had what's called attention span persistence were almost 50% more likely to graduate from college when they were 25. There's abundant evidence that executive functions are crucial for getting and keeping jobs, for getting and keeping friends, for marital satisfaction, and people with better executive function skills as adults are happier and report having a better quality of life. If you don't believe that, here's a wonderful study that shows what employers are using. It's done every year. So every year these characteristics change. This is the latest survey of what employers are looking for in entry-level jobs. And they're looking for all of these skills depend on executive function skills like working in a team, problem solving, communicating, and initiative. I call them life skills. So let's talk about some of these life skills. And the first is executive function skills are always around a goal. So setting goals and strategies is particularly important. You may think that positive thinking is the only way to achieve your goals. We all have heard that so many times. Think positively and you'll succeed. And that is important. But what this research by Gabriel Oettingen has shown that if you don't think of the obstacle to achieving your goal, you lose the energy. You're less likely to really persevere at making it happen. She's done 25 years of research on this. And then you need to make a plan. This is the research of Peter Gollwitzer of NYU. And an if-then plan. If that obstacle occurs when I'm trying to achieve a goal, then I will. So it's important to have a wish or a goal. It's important to think about how that's going to make you feel, the outcome, then to have an obstacle in mind that could come up within you, not someone else's obstacle, not that your boss is being ridiculous, but it's within you, and then make a plan to overcome it. So this is research that helps us set goals and strategies and use executive function-based life skills. I'm going to talk about still another skill. This is perspective taking. Perspective taking in children and adults is so critical. You know what the teacher expects if you can understand what the teacher thinks and feels versus your parents as a younger child. It's very important in reducing conflict and very important in working as a team, the thing that employers thought is most important. This is research that was done at the University of London by Eroise Dumenthil. And what she's found is that it's if the task here is to move, let's say, the ball from one space to another, those gray boxes in the back block what the director can see. So if the director is present, it's somewhat easy to keep the director's perspective in mind. But if the director is not there, in other words, you just are asked to move that yellow ball from one space to another, you might not know, or take the basketball where the big basketball where the director can't see it because there's a box behind it. Even adults really struggle with this. We all know in the current world how hard perspective taking can be. The third life skill that I'll highlight is taking on challenges. We've talked about that from the beginning. This is research by Ethan Kroos at the University of Michigan. He has done similar research that I talked about with Stephanie Carlson, wondering what it takes for, this is adolescents, to take on challenges, looking at their brains in this particular experiment. And he's found that even something so simple as taking the third person perspective, thinking about yourself, what would Ellen do in this challenge, reduces the cognitive challenge and makes it much easier for you to use executive function skills. Again, this research can help us all as educators help children thrive and succeed. But it's not enough to just promote skills. All of us have basic needs. Self-determination theory says that we all have a need to feel competent, to be connected to other people, and to have some control, not to be completely independent, but to have some say in what happens to us. Those are the three developmental needs that self-determination theory has been studying for the last several decades, and have found that it's like physical needs, that we can't really live without our physical needs being met. We can't thrive, and this was my question about thriving, unless our developmental needs or basic needs are met. And there's so much research about this. I'm going to use the research of Wendy Grolnick as an example. These are school-age children, and she's looked at motivation and autonomy, because motivation and engagement are so important to learning. And what she's found in this experiment is some parents were given the equivalent of a homework assignment for their children to do, a map or write a poem, find your way on a map or write a poem. Some parents were just told to do it the way you would do it. And some parents were told to let their child do it. And in the case, you can see on the right, where the parent's job is to help the child, but it's the child's job to do the homework. Not only did the child feel better about it, but when the parent left the room, the child had learned more from that homework assignment. So again, this research can really help children thrive, create the conditions of meeting their needs, like belonging, like treating them with respect. In fact, this is a study that's based on respect, that's done by Jason Akanafua, Greg Walter, and colleagues on discipline with teachers. All teachers want children, they need control of their classroom. They need children to be able to take in and learn from the experience that they're supposed to learn in their education. But what Jason Akanafua found in an intervention is that you can prime teachers to deal with that by being respectful, by having empathy for what the child is going through, or by being punitive. And when teachers were primed to be empathic, to still deal with the infraction, and they use the kind of infractions that get children suspended, typically in middle school, that when teachers were primed to deal with it with respect, that it cut the suspension rates in half among adolescents. So pretty powerful, this research. This is the research of Barbara Snyder at Michigan State University. She's been looking for what makes ideal learning moments. You can see the child is being pinged throughout the school day, and they're answering a set of questions that look at their motivation and how engaged they are. And what Barbara Schneider and her colleagues have found is that when teachers are teaching in ways that engage children, but also challenge them, stretch them just a slight bit, so that they have interest, they are being used, the skills that they have are being used, but they're challenged. that again, the motivation engagement is much higher. And these are things that you can change in the classroom. Again, why looking to the science can be so important. So we've used a lot of this research in our work at the Bezos Family Foundation. Here is a mindset that matters, and to promote, because promoting life skills and meeting developmental needs, those are not enough. We need to also have a mindset that where we not only see that change is possible, a growth mindset like Carol Dweck is talking about, but we need a mindset that where we can feel that we can solve the problem. So we've done a series with First Book of mindsets where we prompt the adult to see the challenge, to realize that they have a choice, and to see it as an opportunity. I'm not sure that we're going to stay with opportunity mindset as a name. So if you have ideas, can do mindset, can try, can do, possibility mindset, solution mindset, please let us know. The skill building strategies come from research to show that if you take the child's view, if you share your reasons, if you give choice, if you involve the child in problem solving, and if you scaffold what you're doing, children are much more likely to handle difficult situations. So this is just a taste of the research that I've been doing for the last 22 years. There's much more to come. Thank you so much.